Hello and welcome to Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation. I'm Dr. Morgan Oakes, your host, and today you and I will be exploring clarity together. I'm a transformational keynote speaker, a high-performance coach, and a shamanic practitioner, and I'm excited to be helping you get clear about what you love and supporting you in stepping further into living your top life. Today, again, we'll be exploring clarity together, and I'm excited to dive in. So I think one thing to look at is that clarity is ultimately, as I kind of broke out earlier, clarity is that half of listening and stepping. So listening is that clarity piece. We listen, we courageously step. Then we courageously listen, then we courageously step. And it just keeps going. It's kind of like left foot, right foot. And it's one half of the equation. And you may know people that have a ton of clarity in life. They always say that they know what they're wanting to do, needing to do, should do, could do, want to do. They share what their passion is, but maybe they don't take those steps forward. So that equation's out of balance, and ultimately what happens is they're not living their best life. They're not being fulfilled, even in what they're already clear about. Now, the other half of that can be a little out of balance is we know people that are taking a ton of action, a ton of steps, always doing. They're part of that Nike Just Do It society, and they're going. But maybe it's been a long time since they stopped to ask the question, is this the right direction? Is this the best step? Is this the relationship, the job, the career? Is this what my body needs for health? Is this how I'm wanting to be connecting with my loved ones? So there's a lot of action, but maybe not a lot of listening, not a lot of clarity. And so today, you and I, we're going to be diving into clarity. It's a topic I'm really passionate about. I love looking at how clarity shows up in our life. Where does it come from? You know, you can get very specific with your answers, and sometimes that's something that can turn people off. And sometimes you can be so broad with your answer that that'll also drive other people crazy. So on a certain level, I don't care where intuition comes from. I don't care necessarily where clarity comes from. I like utilizing it as one of the tools in my resources to hopefully try and live a life I'll be really happy that I lived when I turn around and look at things from the other end. So if you get more specific about it, you know, for me, when I was stepping into really looking more at clarity, I was having these visions about traveling through Central America, and what I called that was learning the language of dude. And so for me, dude was wherever that clarity was coming from. Might have been God, might have been spirit, universe. It might be quantum physics. It might be the fact that, you know, everything's vibration and energy. It might be, you know, that unconscious mind. It might be, you know, mass consciousness. Ultimately, I wasn't too concerned about where it was coming from. I just wanted to develop and deepen that relationship. And for me, it felt like a muscle. The more I used it, the stronger it got. And so I love, again, having this conversation. I love hearing about other people's places of clarity, where that comes from, how that shows up for them, how they really tap into that. And today I'm going to be, you know, sharing some tools that I think are really good resources to, you know, step into this. And I think that when people share frameworks or tools, or somebody shares like, oh, this is how it worked for me, what works for one person doesn't work for another person. So I like sharing kind of a broad array of things and saying, see what here might be true for you. Some things you'll feel really maybe inclined to, or you'll be like, oh yeah, I have those experiences. I know exactly what he's talking about. And some of them you might have real resistance to. It might be outside of your belief system. It might be outside of how you think the world may work. And there may be other things you're resistant to because it's something that would really serve you, and you're just having that, you're experiencing that thin layer of nausea between you and your best life. And so I would ask maybe open mind, open heart, open ears, and we'll dive into this conversation, this exploration together. And, you know, my goal for you is always empowerment. It's always, how can maybe one thing, if I feel like if every episode, every seminar, every experience I have, if there's one takeaway, it's worth it. And sometimes it's a thing to do, and sometimes it's a thing not to do that ends up being that takeaway. So let's dive in. Let's go a few layers deeper. And what I want to share with you is that, you know, in my trip, that learning the language of dude journey down to Central America, I had 4 big visions around that, 4 pieces of clarity. One was start in Mexico and move south. The second one was that something big would happen in Guatemala. I kept seeing, for my third vision, different versions of my own death happening in Panama, which, yeah, you can learn a lot more about this. I go into a lot more detail around this in my TEDx talk, Learning the Language of Dudes. So if you want to search that out on YouTube, I know that's waiting there for you. And in the fourth vision, I had clarity that I would come home early from that trip for my dad's funeral, even though he wasn't sick at the time. And so four pretty powerful, big pieces of clarity or visions. And I would say that for me, that was a culmination of a lot of practicing of the smaller things. Like I said, I think clarity is a muscle, it gets stronger with use. And in the beginning, my pieces of clarity were take an umbrella to work today, even though it was sunny when I left the house, or it was, I started getting a lot more experiences of, feeling like somebody was looking at me and I would turn and make eye contact with them, right? We've all had those experiences. Or, oh my gosh, I haven't heard from Steve in a decade. I wonder what that dude's up to. And the phone would ring and it would be Steve. I started having these experiences and really cultivating them. And one of the ways that clarity shows up for me is synchronicity. And synchronicities, when you look at a lot of these, I think it's also interesting to see who else is having these conversations. Synchronicity, intuition. If you look up quotes there's so many quotes from like Oprah or Steve Jobs or Einstein or these people that we put a little bit of credibility into, right? And they're having these conversations. These are words, these are dialogues that they're having because they're a part of their lives as well. So I think it's interesting to look at some of the bigger people that we know that are utilizing these, and also look to our own lives to see where this has been true. And what started showing up for me a little over a decade ago was really synchronicity. It was person A, this first person would say, oh my gosh, you need to read book A. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, book A. And then the second person would come in and be like, oh my gosh, I just finished this amazing book. It's called book A. I really think you should read it. Oh, cool. There's book A again. And what I got better at noticing was when that third person would come in and they'd say, oh my gosh, you need to read this book. It's called, and I would interrupt them. It became like a game. I'd be like, is it called book A? And they're like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And it was me just having more awareness in my day-to-day life, me realizing that maybe there was something outside of me that was trying to, put the specific pieces of the map in front of me so I could pull it all together and maybe be living a life I was more passionate about, a life that I was more connected to. It's kind of like that little cheat sheet. So some of the tools that I think that will really help with clarity, and again, notice what you're drawn to, notice what you're not drawn to, and then bring in a little discernment. Are you not drawn to it because it's just not your thing? Or are you not drawn to it because it's going to stretch you in a certain way and maybe it's exactly what you need to be doing? I don't have any attachment to what it is for you, but I think that's always good to be tracking in life and love and all the things that we do. So one great way to step into a deeper level of clarity is just by paying attention to our dreams. So I think maybe you've had an experience where you woke up one morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I have an answer to that problem I've been having. I have clarity about the next step in this relationship or this career, or, oh my gosh, here's the answer to this thing I've been working on that has eluded me for weeks or months or years. So dreams are a good place to start. And again, I like tying into those pieces where we're not the only people having these experiences. Some of us may have heard of Einstein, right? Have you heard of Einstein? And you're probably laughing and shaking your head like, yeah, you're being ridiculous. So we've heard of Einstein, and his theory of relativity actually came to him in a dream. He had a dream about these cows and an electric fence. And when he woke up, that's what started developing into his theory of relativity. Now, for you, and I like grounding it into science because not everything we do is going to come from our head. I like the balance of head, heart, and gut. And we're learning more and more about how much neurology is actually contained in the head and the gut. We're not just brains walking around having this experience. And so if we can tie into some of those other networks of where information comes from, I think it adds, it's like extra superpowers. And who doesn't want more of those? So when we go back to dreams, organic chemistry, the chemical structure for benzene came to that scientist, and I'm forgetting his name, but it came to him in a dream about snakes coiled up into these hoops, which really represents kind of that organic chemical structure of carbon rings. So dreams can be a powerful place. And I think we can, before we go to bed, we can ask for or set intentions around dreams. And, a little Rolling Stones wisdom, you don't always get what you want, but maybe you get what you need. And so dreams are a good place. Now, Second tip, first thing in the morning. As a high performance coach, the way I was trained and what I share with my clients as well is that keeping that first hour of the day sacred or precious, or holding space for something other than our cell phone, the news, emails, text messages. If we do that, we know from a research level that our productivity for the day goes down by double digits. So I think it's important to keep that morning area open. And people have all sorts of different things they like to do there. Maybe it's a meditation practice. Maybe it's a walk in nature and paying attention to what comes up, shows up for us. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's reading a favorite book. Maybe it's a favorite warm beverage, shared from a comfy chair or couch, or a walk through nature. Everybody has a different version of what this may look like, but how do you hold space before we accelerate into our days? Because whether you're a parent, or an employee, or a business owner, or even if you're on vacation, like when you accelerate into your day, whether it's work, play, connection, joy, whatever it is, there's something that we lost in that morning if we haven't taken time for it. So I think a second thing is holding space in the morning for those intuitions, for those clarities, pieces of clarity to show up. Another thing I really like doing is, letting go of the past, being present in the moment, and also holding a space for the future. It's really easy. And we'll go deeper into some of these topics later, but so many of us are guided by our past in a way that doesn't serve us. Whether it's shoulds from our family, belief systems that we thought were true about ourselves. Is it something that goes on like blinders, like we're horses at a racetrack and we don't see anything to the left or the right, just keep running forward, or is it, we're pushing so far against being this thing that we're avoiding the things we could be, or we're so focused on one thing, we're avoiding the other thing. So I think really cleaning up and doing a lot of work around the past helps to free up possibility in the future, being present in the moment so that you can notice what you're thinking, what your heart's telling you, what your gut's telling you. Where's your body tightening up or opening around? When does the hair stand up on the back of your neck? When is there a song that, the radio's been playing for 3 hours and you haven't heard anything that's come out of it, and then you hear one specific lyric from one specific song right at a moment when you were thinking about something? And maybe you can tie those together, and maybe it means something. Maybe it means something in your life. So I like getting really present in my day whenever possible. And then I think it's important to hold something for the future. And we may not know the next 200 steps. We may only know the next 2 or 3 steps. And it doesn't mean that we don't be thinkers and be proactive and try to map out, milestones and places along that journey so that we'll know we're going in the right direction. But I think there's something really important about really present, clean up the past, and have a vision for the future that you're moving into. So those are some of the things I really like around strengthening clarity. I also think gratitude's a big, important thing. When those things happen, sometimes my gratitude is a laugh, like, oh, you told me to, I had the intuition to grab this umbrella today and I didn't, and now I'm soaking wet. And I can laugh and be grateful that the message came through, even if I didn't listen to it. Or if a message comes through and I listen to it and follow through and something amazing happens, or I, miss something that's less than amazing, gratitude for that. I think the other thing that we do is we take action. If somebody keeps telling you, oh, the way to town square is 2 blocks forward and take a right, and we never go 2 blocks forward and take a right, and we still keep complaining that we want to go to the town square, it's old, right? We get tired of that. And I think the same is true with clarity, intuition, synchronicities, these other pieces, and with life in general. You get the next 2 steps, 2 blocks forward, take a right. Cool. We follow through. And then usually there's somebody else to ask. The next part of the map opens up. The next step in our process opens up. And so, the framework that I really love in my life, that clarity, courage, inspired action, that listen and step, clarity is a big piece of it. I think that there's so many ways that this can show up for us. And I'm really grateful to be sharing this information with you. I'm glad that you're along for the ride. I'm glad we're exploring this together. Know that in the future, I will be interviewing amazing people about all of this, about how they've stepped into the, the amazingness of their life, what makes life more enjoyable for them. And hopefully all of us, you and I together, we'll be gathering more wisdom. We will be learning more about intuitive wisdom and how that plays into modern transformation. We'll keep exploring this together. I'm so grateful you're here. Have an amazing day and be well. Thank you for exploring intuitive wisdom and modern transformation with me today. If you enjoyed your experience, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show on iTunes. It really does make a difference. For those of you that want more information about having me speak at your company or event, or are interested in coaching directly with me, please go to drmorganoaks.com and send me a message today.